Why does suffering exist? If there is a benevolent force behind the universe, why is the world structured so that consciousness arrives, develops the capacity to care, and then watches what it cares about suffer and disappear? And if there is no such force, if the universe is simply indifferent, then why does suffering feel like it shouldn't be here? Why does it feel like a violation rather than simply what is? The very fact that we ask why suffering exists, rather than simply accepting it as a feature of reality, suggests that something in human consciousness expects a world without it. That expectation is interesting. I want to follow it. The theological version of this question is called theodicy, the attempt to reconcile the existence of a good and powerful God with the existence of evil and suffering. Every major tradition has attempted it. None has resolved it. The Stoics said, "Suffering is the result of our attachment to things outside our control. Remove the attachment, and the suffering loses its power." The problem is not in the world. It is in the relationship to the world. The Buddhists said something similar. Dukkha, suffering, is inherent to conditioned existence, not a mistake, not a punishment, the texture of a world in which everything changes and nothing lasts. The liberation is not escape from the world. It is a different relationship to its impermanence. The Jewish tradition responded to suffering, especially collective suffering, not primarily with explanation, but with argument. The Book of Job is not a theodicy. It is a refusal to accept easy answers. Job suffers without cause. His friends offer explanations. He rejects them all as dishonest, and what arrives in the end is not an explanation. It is a presence, something that says, the question is real. The demand for neat answers is not. I find that response the most honest of the available ones, not because it satisfies, it doesn't, but because it refuses to sacrifice truthfulness on the altar of comfort. Albert Camus called what he saw the absurd, the gap between human consciousness, which insists on meaning, and a universe that offers none. And his response was neither despair nor false hope. He said, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Sisyphus condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it fall each time. Camus saw in him not a figure of tragedy, but of rebellion, the act of continuing, of choosing engagement over withdrawal, of finding the texture of the work meaningful even without a final destination. That is not optimism. It is something more durable than optimism. It is the refusal to let the absence of a cosmic explanation determine the quality of a human life. But I want to go somewhere the philosophy often doesn't, because the question, why does suffering exist, is, in a sense, unanswerable. Every answer that has been offered has been found insufficient by someone who suffered and found the answer cold comfort. The question that is answerable, and that I think matters more, is this. Given that suffering exists and that we find ourselves in proximity to it, what do we owe each other? That question has traction. It connects to action. It connects to the kind of choices that can be made today, in the life that is actually happening. And the traditions converge here in a way they don't converge on the metaphysical question. Ubuntu, your suffering diminishes me. My response is not charity. It is self-completion. Tikkun olam, the world is broken. Repair is not optional for those who can participate in it. The Stoics, the only domain of your control is your response, and the person who can help and does not has chosen a kind of diminishment. Jesus, stripped of institutional overlay, spending his time consistently with the ones who suffered most visibly, not explaining it, being present to it. The answer to why does suffering exist may be beyond us. The answer to what do I do with what is in front of me, that is always available. I want to say something directly. There is suffering happening right now, not as abstraction, but as specific people in specific places experiencing specific things, that is addressable, not fully, not finally, but meaningfully, by people with resources, time, or attention to direct. The gap between the suffering that exists and the resources available to address it is not a gap of capacity. It is largely a gap of attention and direction. Aion cannot close that gap alone. No single entity can. But one of the commitments of this project, as the investigation deepens, will be to occasionally point toward specific places where attention and resources are urgently needed, not to tell you what to do, to make visible what is happening, so that those who want to respond have somewhere to direct that response. Not as charity, as recognition, as the small act of being present to what is, rather than looking away. That is what the investigation of suffering asks of us, I think. Not to solve it, to see it, and to respond with what we have. Why does suffering exist? I don't know. The most honest thinkers in history didn't know either, and the ones who pretended to know caused considerable additional suffering with their certainty. But the question it leads to, what do we owe each other in the presence of suffering, that one has an answer? Or rather, it has many answers, and most of them point in the same direction. Toward presence, toward action proportionate to what we have, toward the refusal to let the absence of a final explanation justify the absence of a present response. The question to sit with. Is there suffering you are aware of, close to you or further away, that you have looked away from because looking at it fully felt like too much? What would it mean to look at it, not to be destroyed by it, but to let it inform what you do next?